All right, we are live. What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. I'm basically going to be doing this. I'm going to start doing this every Monday because I think this is kind of just a fun way to talk about football. This isn't going to be too serious. This isn't going to be too in-depth with like stats or anything, but I'm basically just going to kind of go through, give my biggest takeaways for the week while I sit here, kind of have my morning tea and shit, and you guys can, fire away with any questions that you have. Basically just kind of chop it up on a Monday morning. I know a lot of other YouTube channels do like serious like takeaway videos, but you know what? I kind of feel like just doing a Monday live stream solo and, whatever questions you guys have, feel free to fire away as well. And I'll just kind of work through some of the takeaways I had for the week. Before people start to pile in here, I'll just kind of start with my first takeaway for anybody that watches this back. I want to give them something to listen to, but I think the biggest takeaway I have for this week in fantasy is the Bengals are a legit contender in the AFC. And the exciting thing for fantasy, because this is a fantasy YouTube channel, is that the Bengals have shifted their offensive philosophy a little bit. The Bengals went from a situation neutral pass rate in the first 3 weeks of 24th in the NFL. So they were in games where it was close. They were within 7 points. They were either leading by 7 or losing by 7. They were 24th in the NFL with a 55% pass rate. These past 3 games, weeks 4 to 7, or I guess these past like 4 games that would be, or yeah, exactly. So 68% is 100, or is, Jesus, I'm not able to talk this morning. Anyway, 68% first in the NFL. Neutral script pass rate for the Cincinnati Bengals. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, we saw them have, T. Higgins had 14 targets, didn't have a big game, but Jamar Chase, of course, did have a big game. Definitely exciting to see from the Cincinnati Bengals that they're going towards a more pass-heavy approach because the Cincinnati Bengals had been a team that's going to run the ball a lot. And that's not what we expected coming into the season. Definitely something that you like to see if you have Jamar Chase in fantasy or if you have T. Higgins. I have T. Higgins, so I'm definitely appreciating seeing that. So we got some comments in the chat now. I'll go through some of these. Big Al says, my week 7 takeaway, Dearness Johnson was my best waiver pickup of the season. Yeah, Dearness Johnson definitely came through for a lot of people that needed him on bye week fill-ins. I know he was probably the biggest waiver wire ad this week, and he definitely came through for some people, especially given the fact that Nick Chubb was out and Kareem Hunt was out or were out. You didn't expect a lot from the Browns running game. I expected them to deploy, somewhat of a committee and their offense to be somewhat stagnant because they didn't have those 2 great running backs that they have. But Dearness Johnson carried the load, and I'm not really sure if this affects anything long-term. I don't think he's going to be suddenly involved when Nick Chubb comes back. Maybe they mix him in here and there until Kareem Hunt is back, but this is pretty much just a guy that I think was kind of like a 1-week wonder, if I'm being honest, but good for him. He had a great game. Nate says 6-1 Bush. Thanks for that last second invite to the FSC Dino League. It's been fun as hell. Yeah, no worries, Nate. Appreciate having you in there. I believe, I can't remember if you're the one who has Lamar Jackson or not, but I know I tried to get him when I did have all the Ravens on my team. As you guys know, if you watch the Sunday live stream, me and Danny executed a trade where I traded away Rashad Bateman and who was the other person I traded away? I traded away Rashad Bateman and J.K. Dobbins, who's on injured reserve with the torn ACL. And I received Leonard Fournette and Jerry Jeudy as compensation for that because I am in need of running backs. I really like Leonard Fournette's long-term outlook with the Bucs. I think he's going to be back with this team on like a Chris Carson level type of contract after the season. And I really like what Jerry Jeudy presents as well. So appreciate having you in there, Nate. I took a tough loss this week. Garrett's team did some numbers on me there. So I'm 3-4 right now, but I'm still in a contending position. Obviously, I have a couple of guys that were out this week with Antonio Brown, Chase Claypool, Saquon Barkley still out right now. So I still like my shot at winning the title this year. What should I do with Allen Robinson? That is a good question. Easton. Again, I said it on the Start Sit show this week, but if you couldn't start Allen Robinson in this matchup, I don't know if you could start Allen Robinson, period, because we knew the Bears were going to have to throw the ball. And yes, the Bucs defense is good to some degree. Like it's good at getting pressure and it's good at getting to the quarterback, but Justin Fields did drop back to pass quite a bit in this game. I'll actually have to pull up the exact numbers of how many times he dropped back, but I bet it was a season high off the top of my head. Yeah, Justin Fields dropped back 32 times. 32 pass attempts is how many times he threw the ball. Obviously, he was sacked a bunch. He was a guy that took 4 sacks in this game. So he dropped back 36 times total. Allen Robinson, if he can't get it done in that kind of matchup, then I really don't know what you're going to do with the guy. I think this is probably a receiver that you're going to have to play matchups with. And even then, he's still like a streaming wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type. And with everybody back now off the bye weeks, he's probably going to live in my like 40s because he's not a guy that has been very trustworthy. He's yet to finish with any single fantasy performance that has given you any kind of confidence if you drafted this guy highly. Bryson just robbed this guy, Rondale Moore and Aiyuk for Lockett and Ruggs. Yeah, so you traded away 2 guys that are, hopefuls, I would say. Ruggs has outproduced both Rondale Moore and Aiyuk, so I think him alone in that deal makes me like that side. But the fact that you get Lockett and what sounds like, and I saw some news on this, I think it was like early Sunday morning or something like that. Some news came out about Russell Wilson potentially being back faster than usual, and I mean, that kind of makes sense to me. Like Russell Wilson's not a guy that's missed any games really in his career up until this year. So the fact that he might rush back from injury doesn't shock me, and that their team's a complete dumpster fire without Russell Wilson. So that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully when Russell Wilson comes back, they realize that he's their best chance to win. Start throwing the ball, let him cook a little bit. But Jared says, tighten up. Yeah, big win for the Tennessee Titans. Big win for the Tennessee Titans. And another takeaway that kind of transitions well into one of my takeaways is, what the hell's wrong with Kansas City? I honestly don't know what to say about Kansas City right now because Patrick Mahomes, he got banged up in this game. It looked like he may have suffered a concussion, but it sounds like he's going to be just fine. It said he wasn't in concussion protocol or anything. So that's definitely okay to see. I talked about the Titans in my DFS article as a great streaming or defense to use in DFS because they were basically the minimum price. And the Titans defense were in a good position because the Chiefs were leading the NFL in turnovers coming into this week. And they had another couple in this game. So I really don't know what's wrong with Kansas City right now. This is not the Chiefs offense that we expected to see. It's still obviously a top 5, top 10 offense in the NFL, but in terms of yards per play and points per drive and things of that nature. But this is not the same dominant, clearly the best offense in the league that you expected when you drafted Tyreek Hill, that you expected when you drafted Travis Kelce. I would say Travis Kelce has definitely been one of the more disappointing fantasy assets because Travis Kelce was a guy that you expected was going to be your advantage at the tight end position. And he's been good. He's been fine, but he's not been exactly what you wanted when you spent that first or that early second round pick on Travis Kelce. And thankfully, I was a guy, I didn't end up with a lot of Travis Kelce in terms of underdog drafts or my own home leagues or anything like that. So I dodged a little bit of a bullet there because I think you would have been better off taking some elite wide receivers or running backs with those picks. Danny says, just swap Chase, Ertz, and Dylan for T. Schlig, Pitts, and Drake, the meta. Okay, so Danny made a trade clearly in his. I know it's a redraft league because he already told me, but I don't know, dude. I like with the way Jamar Chase is playing. Like, I don't know if I want to trade the guy, but I like getting a better tight end, obviously, in Kyle Pitts. I think Kyle Pitts legitimately has a chance to be the best tight end in fantasy this year, as I talked about already, kind of with Kelce not performing at typical Travis Kelce levels. He's still good, obviously. Darren Waller, again, having a bit of a down stretch so far this season as well. George Kittle being out. Kyle Pitts, man, he could be this year's tight end 1 by the time the season's over. So not a bad trade there for Danny. I got Lockett's side. Yep, I figured that. Blake says, when the hell is Javonte Williams going to get a 65% snap share? So unfortunately, Blake, I'm not sure when this is going to happen. Now, I've talked about it before, how Javonte Williams becomes a league winner is one of a couple possibilities, right? He could become a league winner simply by the fact that Melvin Gordon gets injured or traded, which are less likely scenarios and unpredictable. So yes, they are, an upside of Javonte Williams. And as a Javonte Williams owner in the league that I care most about, I'm, subtly hoping that Melvin Gordon gets traded or something like that. But Javonte Williams getting a 65% snap share is simply going to be a coach's decision at this point, in my opinion. So if Javonte Williams continues to keep playing well, and he is playing well, he got a lot of targets on Thursday night. I think he showed a couple things in the passing game that we hadn't yet seen from him. If he continues to play well, then I think we could see Javonte Williams get more and more snaps as the season goes along. But the problem is Melvin Gordon isn't a slouch. He isn't a bum. He isn't Tevin Coleman or anything like that. He's a guy that is a pro level running back who's been a Pro Bowler in the past, who's still a good running back in the NFL, probably a top 30 running back in the NFL. So it's going to be hard for Javonte Williams to just straight up win the job from him because Melvin Gordon is a veteran. He's not going to make mistakes. He does things that Javonte Williams can't quite do yet in his young career. So like I said, I can't answer that question, Blake. I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later as a Javonte Williams owner, but I honestly don't know when it's going to happen. Maybe it's like a post-bye week situation. We saw it took Cam Akers until week 11, week 12 to take over his backfield. Maybe we could see something similar with Javonte Williams. Jared, Trey Sermon is 100% done. Didn't even get a snap. Okay, so this transitions into another one of my takeaways, which is I'm going to take a victory lap right now. I called Elijah Mitchell. I called it. I literally said, and I quote, this Elijah Mitchell situation is going to be the Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones situation, because I had a higher film grade on Elijah Mitchell coming into the NFL draft. Trey Sermon had the draft capital, so I had to respect that, which is why I was willing to buy into Trey Sermon. But I always thought Elijah Mitchell was the better player. Clearly, Kyle Shanahan thinks Elijah Mitchell is the better player, and I think that's definitely something that we're seeing playing out right now. Elijah Mitchell from the very get-go has been the back to own in this backfield. And I said, and again, I quote, Kyle Shanahan doesn't care where you came from, where you were drafted, or how you got there. If you are the best person for whatever job he has in mind for you, whether you're the third down back or the Raheem Mostert role, which is what it looks like Elijah Mitchell is playing, he will put you on the field. He doesn't care that Trey Sermon was a highly drafted player. He doesn't care that Raheem Mostert maybe makes the most money on that team. He doesn't care, back in a couple years ago that Raheem Mostert was a journeyman running back and Jerick McKinnon was a highly paid running back. He didn't care. He just put the best running back on the field. So I was willing to buy into the talent of Trey Sermon or of Elijah Mitchell over Trey Sermon because I simply saw a better player in college than I did in Trey Sermon. And same goes with Khalil Herbert, to be honest. I never thought, I wasn't predicting David Montgomery to get injured or anything, but I believed in Khalil Herbert. I thought he was a great fourth round rookie pick because Khalil Herbert was a guy that I thought was one of the top 8 running backs in this draft class. I thought the kid could play. And I saw him as a late third round talent, and he just had a 100-yard rushing day against the best run defense in the NFL. And he's one of only 3 running backs to do that since 2019. Chris Carson and Dalvin Cook being the other 2. So Khalil Herbert and Elijah Mitchell, again, I'm going to take some victory laps on those guys because they were my 2 rookie sleepers. If you guys watch the rookie sleepers video at running back, and they both have kind of hit so far based on the expectations we had coming into the season for them. So definitely want to pat myself on the back for that. Of course, I've made some mistakes, Brandon Aiyuk being one of them. So don't want to get too high on myself there, but definitely like those 2 running backs coming in. They're paying off. Got to make myself mod, in my opinion. Sold Chase for Diggs this week. Now I have FOMO. Yeah, okay, so I'm assuming this is a redraft league because I probably wouldn't do this in Dynasty as it currently stands, but in selling Jamar Chase right now, I mean, I'm not going to call him a sell high candidate, but is he really going to keep doing this? Like, this is insane what this kid's doing. Every week, this guy has a 50-yard touchdown, and I really don't know if he can keep it up, but part of me thinks he can because he simply just looks that good. And the Bengals offense, we clearly, like the narrative of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, I actually thought this was going to be some annoying narrative coming into the season, and it wouldn't actually pan out because, the NFL's different. It's not college. You can't just like transition one chemistry from one level to the next, but man, they haven't missed a step, and it's been really fun to watch. And I'm kind of surprised that Chase has been as good as he has. I knew he was a good prospect. I knew he was probably the best receiver prospect of the last 5 years, according to NFL teams. But I didn't think he'd be this good. This is even surprising me. Like we're 6 games into his rookie season, and this guy is legitimately on pace to break Justin Jefferson, his former teammate's record a year ago. And we all thought that Justin Jefferson was an outlier. Man, Jamar Chase is just as much of an outlier as Justin Jefferson so far. Danny was 0.8 off of 3 and 4. Yeah, you hate to see that. Good thing I lost for team draft picks. Yeah, he's tanking in that league, so you love to see that. Goddard or Ertz? I'm assuming you mean going forward. I would take Dallas Goedert. He definitely saw an uptick in terms of his snap share and things of that nature with Ertz gone. So I'll take Goddard. I know Zach Ertz caught a long touchdown or something like that, but Zach Ertz did run a little bit of a limited role. The Cardinals still run their offense through their wide receivers. So I'm going to stick with Dallas Goedert in that side of the question there. Who's a buy low candidate? I will, talk about that tomorrow. I don't want to get into that too much right now because I like to put a lot of research into those videos. I know you guys really enjoy them. They're the highest viewed videos of the week, usually of our content schedule. So I will, hit the lab after I'm done this live stream and conjure up my best buy low candidates because I think there's definitely going to be some out there for sure. Hey pal, what's up, Tyler? Aiyuk still just doing nothing. Any hope left? I honestly don't have a lot of hope for Brandon Aiyuk. I messed up. I fucked up. That wasn't on me. I thought Brandon Aiyuk was going to be phenomenal this year. But in my defense, I think this is an above the shoulders issue. This is nothing to do with Brandon Aiyuk as a player. I highly doubt this is a talent issue. I think this is a work ethic, attitude, whatever these, when your GM and your coach constantly come out and call you out based on your work ethic and your attitude, it's got to be a real issue. Like, I don't think it's just Kyle Shanahan has a huge ego and he's not putting Aiyuk on the field. No, I like these guys got spent a first round pick on this wide receiver. They want him to work out. It doesn't benefit them in any way for this guy not to be a successful NFL wide receiver. And it looks like this is an Aiyuk problem. And obviously that's something we can't really predict because we don't work with these guys. We don't watch them practice or anything like that. But this was really kept under wraps until the beginning of the season. I'm surprised we didn't hear any of this chatter that he doesn't work hard or anything throughout the offseason or in preseason. It was just kind of, as soon as we got to the season, it's, oh, yep, Aiyuk doesn't work hard. He's got an attitude problem. It seems weird that it waited till after our fantasy drafts for this issue to come out. But Danny's saying, what's up to Flet in the chat? Dallas Goedert or Logan Thomas going forward? So Logan Thomas, I believe, is eligible to return off of IR this week or maybe next week, but Ricky Seals-Jones definitely filled in admirably for Logan Thomas. I expect Logan Thomas to assume his full role. I don't expect them to just go to some committee or something at some point. So I would still go with Dallas Goedert just because you get an extra week or two out of those guys. And the Washington football team offense is, not great. I would say I'd prefer the Eagles passing offense to the Washington offense as it currently stands, especially with the target competition of Terry McLaurin for Logan Thomas in Washington there. So I'll go with Dallas Goedert slightly there, but it's pretty close. Tight ends are stepping up this year. Yeah, I would say there's definitely been more middle tight ends. I would say there's the elite tight ends that we've seen in years past where like Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, of course, are just head and shoulders above the rest. I think it's kind of dissipated a little bit. We're seeing a little bit more of a close-knit tight end group where pretty much, any tight end each week can be in the top 5 of the top 15 or so tight ends. So definitely good to know that. I would say usually when you look across your league and you had an extra tight end on your bench or something, you could find 4 or 5 teams that have a terrible tight end. But I mean, in my league right now, like the worst teams, they have a Mike Gesicki, they have a Hunter Henry, they have somebody like that who's actually producing right now. So Tyler Higbee, even like these guys are actually producing right now. So that's definitely something that's good to see for the tight end landscape because it had been bad before that. So Leonardo says this week sucked. Darnold really hurt me. Should have picked up Tua. Could win if Metcalf scores less than 24 PPR points. Yeah, that one's on me. I called out Darnold over Tua. I think I'm done with Sam Darnold. Again, that's another one of my takeaways that I have written down here. Geno Smith, Jared Goff, and Jameis Winston have higher PFF passing grades right now than Sam Darnold. And that first 3-week stretch or whatever, where Sam Darnold looked like he was a phenomenal quarterback. He was the next Ryan Tannehill. That looked like to be one of the biggest fugazis I've seen in a while because he looks bad. He looks like Jet Sam Darnold right now. And it's unfortunate to see because it looked like he was turning a corner in his career, and it's not really happening right now. We got a super chat from Slim74. Appreciate that. Loving Henry, having Freiermuth, and looking at Foster if Waller out. Foster, a good pass catcher. Yeah. So speaking on the tight end landscape, those 3 guys right there, Freiermuth is going to continue to see his role grow, I'd imagine, with Juju now out. Hunter Henry, again, he's been producing. He looks like the number 1 tight end there in New England. I'll actually pull up his snap share from what we've seen. Let me just pull this up. I want to see actually if he did continue to roll. Yeah, so Hunter Henry ran 28 routes compared to Jonnu Smith's 8 and 60 snaps to Jonnu Smith's 17. So I think it's pretty clear that the Patriots coaching staff has recognized that Hunter Henry was the better fit for their offense. And I think that was a given. I'm kind of surprised they even signed Jonnu Smith in the first place. I think Hunter Henry just made way more sense for them as the typical inline tight end. You use him in the red zone. You give him, first down targets. You use him, like a traditional tight end. I thought that's what they were going to do with Hunter Henry. But the Jonnu Smith signing just made everything so much more complicated. And I think maybe they, move on from Jonnu Smith after this season. Maybe they trade him away or something like that because I just don't think the fit's there necessarily. They're not really using him to his fullest potential. I was hoping Jonnu Smith was going to go to a team that would use him a little bit more creatively, and that's not really what's happening right now. So Tyler says, hello, Daniel. Efren says, you definitely called Mitchell. I remember watching your Dynasty rookie videos in the summer. Yeah, that's definitely my biggest hit. I would say of all the sleepers that I had all year was definitely Elijah Mitchell for sure. And Khalil Herbert Kid can play. And somebody asked me a question on Twitter yesterday. They were like, what's Khalil Herbert's dynasty value going forward? I would say the bare minimum essential dynasty value that you want to see out of a running back and out of a player in general is, can they play football? Like, are they good? And Khalil Herbert can play. So dynasty value, when David Montgomery comes back, is Khalil Herbert going to be the same guy that he is? Obviously not. They're going to give the job back to David Montgomery. He's the better player. He's their, workhorse running back. But in the future, does Khalil Herbert make Damian Williams, Tariq Cohen, some of the guys that are currently on the roster expendable? Sure. And can Khalil Herbert become Tony Pollard, Alex Madison for the next, 3 years of his rookie contract? I think he can. So Khalil Herbert, I would say that 4th round rookie pick that you spent on him, and I know I have him in one dynasty league as well. That 4th round rookie pick that you have invested in Khalil Herbert just became an early 3rd rounder, I would say, is probably what his value is going forward. So I definitely like to see that. Anytime you can gain value on a player is perfect. And at 4th round picks, I mean, you're throwing darts at that point. So if you hit on 4th round picks, and I would qualify this as a hit, then that's definitely good to see. Thoughts on Allen Robinson? Just hold? Oof. I don't know, man. I wasn't high on Allen Robinson, so thankfully I don't have this problem. I don't own Allen Robinson anywhere. I have very little exposure to him on underdog drafts in actual leagues. So if I had Allen Robinson right now, I'd probably be looking to sell him. Like, if you can sell somebody on the fact that this guy was a 3rd round pick in fantasy drafts and get something a little bit better because of that, then maybe you do that. But I don't really know what to do with him at this point. I can't give you guys a straight answer on what to do with Allen Robinson. I would like to say it's going to get better. It's going to get better. But I mean, Justin Fields isn't throwing the ball a whole lot. This was a pass heavy game script. He doesn't look that great. And I don't really know what to do with Allen Robinson right now, especially in Dynasty. Like in Dynasty, what you're hoping Allen Robinson is like a Robert Woods and Adam Thielen, a guy that's going to be a top, a wide receiver 2, a top 24 wide receiver for the next 2 years while he's, because he's an older receiver. But you can't even say that about Allen Robinson right now. So yeah, definitely a bad situation if you have a lot of investment in Allen Robinson. Thankfully, I don't. And he was one of my biggest busts coming into the season. And it was a little bit of a long shot, the take that I had on Allen Robinson, the passing volume going way down, the fact that his volume would be impacted by Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet and some of the other tertiary options. But I mean, it's rung true. And thankfully, I don't have a lot invested in Allen Robinson. Aiyuk has to be droppable at this point. He's killing me. Yeah. So Aiyuk is droppable, but you got to know, like, what are you dropping him for? Because I think he's rosterable in the fact that I'd like to have him on my roster. But if you have a great option like Rashad Bateman on the waiver wire, like drop Aiyuk for him. Like I'd rather have Rashad Bateman. So it's all going to depend who you're dropping him for. But the word droppable definitely applies to Brandon Aiyuk. Anyone considering Julio Jones as a buy very low in PPR league? Someone is asking for Gaskin or Kenyon Drake in a trade. Okay, so Julio Jones is probably going to be one of my buy lows this week. And it's not because I 100% believe in Julio Jones. It's because of what you just said. Someone's asking for Gaskin or Kenyon Drake. Now, do I believe Julio Jones is going to be the top 15 wide receiver that he was probably drafted as? Probably not. But can he be an every week wide receiver 3 flex play? I think so. I think that's probably what Julio Jones is going to be. Now, the injury is scary. It's a hamstring injury. This is an older receiver. If he re-aggravates it again, he could be out for 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. Maybe even need surgery or something. So if you don't want to trade for Julio Jones, and again, I don't know if he's for sure going to be in the video or not, but he is a guy that if you can get him for basement value, then I don't mind buying him. But I also don't mind selling him if somebody is willing to buy into the Julio Jones of old, because he does have a huge name, right? He's been a fantasy superstar for 10 years. So if you can sell Julio Jones for anybody that's very valuable, like if you could sell Julio Jones for Elijah Mitchell right now, like I would do that. But if you can only sell Julio Jones for Myles Gaskin, give me Julio Jones there. So to answer your question, James, if you can get Julio Jones for Gaskin, do it. Kenyon Drake, although I would hold off on just because Josh Jacobs, and I'll kind of transition this into another takeaway that I had, is both Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs suffered injuries. Miles Sanders sounds like his might be more serious because he was carted off with an ankle injury. It could be, a high ankle sprain or something like that. So we'll have to monitor that situation. Kenny Gainwell obviously moves to the top of the waiver wire pecking order because of Miles Sanders' injury. I actually want to pull up what Kenny Gainwell's role was once Miles Sanders exited the game right now. So it looked like Kenny Gainwell ran about 21 routes of the 39. So he was the primary third down guy. Miles Sanders did play 12 snaps of the 68, but outside of those 12 snaps, Kenneth Gainwell played 34. Boston Scott played 23. So Kenneth Gainwell, clearly a guy that's going to see a big time uptick in value. Like if you get carted off with an injury, you got to miss sometime. I highly doubt Miles Sanders gets carted off with an injury and is back next week. He's probably at least going to miss like 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 games or something like that. So Kenneth Gainwell, I'm sure Danny will talk about him on the waiver wire show tomorrow, but definitely a guy that I'm monitoring. And Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs, same thing. It sounds like Josh Jacobs suffered a chest injury. I'm not really sure what, the severity of it is, but if he misses any games, I'd imagine that Kenyon Drake's going to be valuable. But Josh Jacobs is a pretty tough guy. He usually plays through a lot. So if it's just like he got nicked up in this game, I'd imagine he'll just play through it. What's going on with Darnold? DJ's production is being mediocre as of late. Again, I talked about DJ Moore as a good buy low candidate. I think he's still a good buy low candidate, but I am a little bit hesitant given the fact that Darnold just looks bad. Like he just doesn't look good. I don't know how to explain it. This looks like the New York Jets Sam Darnold, and I don't want him to be New York Jets Sam Darnold. I want him to be the Sam Darnold I saw in the first 3 games, the guy that was rushing touchdowns in and making DJ Moore a great fantasy value. We're hearing word that the Carolina Panthers are, poking around the Deshaun Watson situation. Not really a good sign for DJ Moore because the Panthers, frankly, don't have the draft capital to get Deshaun Watson. So if they want to get Deshaun Watson, that means that Miami, Philadelphia, some of these other teams that have the draft capital to get him aren't going to, they're going to outbid Carolina if they want to get him. So it's going to be really tough for Carolina to actually make a play for a guy like that. Maybe they scope around like a Tua or something like that if Miami is the one that trades for Deshaun Watson. But again, this isn't very good news for DJ Moore because it looked like at the beginning of the season, we have a quarterback for DJ Moore. Maybe he's not a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, but can he be a Matt Ryan? Can he be a Kirk Cousins? Sure. But it doesn't look like that's what Sam Darnold's going to be as of right now. And it's definitely, horrible to see because I do have Sam Darnold in one of my dynasty leagues and I was considering selling him after the first 3 games and I didn't do it. And now I'm regretting it. So, keep their D'Ernest on team since Hunt is on IR. Yeah, I don't think you can drop D'Ernest Johnson if Nick Chubb is back next week, and that's not a guarantee. He could still miss another game. Knowing that they have D'Ernest Johnson, I'm sure they're not going to want to rush Nick Chubb back, especially with all the injuries that the Browns are dealing with. They got Beckham banged up. They got Mayfield missing games. I think D'Ernest Johnson is still worth a roster spot. I wouldn't drop him quite yet, but once we see Nick Chubb on the field, if Nick Chubb is, a workhorse running back or something like that, then you could probably drop D'Ernest Johnson after that game. Is P. Ryan a low-end RB2 rest of season? It seems like he's splitting snaps and getting valuable touches. Now, okay, so Samaje P. Ryan, I don't think he's a low-end RB2, but is he a good handcuff that you probably should have on your roster? Yeah, for sure. And even though he was splitting snaps and getting valuable touches, I don't want to read too much into that. I still think that's a function of Joe Mixon still being banged up. Joe Mixon's a guy that maybe some people are going to, coin a buy low candidate because of the volume that he usually gets. But it does concern me a little bit that Samaje P. Ryan was as involved as he was. I can't remember off the top of my head what his snap share actually was, but it was pretty high. I think it was like 50% almost. Okay, so Samaje P. Ryan ran 30 snaps to Joe Mixon's 34. So they almost split snaps right down the middle. Routes were pretty similar as well. Joe Mixon ran 16 routes. Samaje P. Ryan ran 12. So again, not ideal for Joe Mixon fantasy managers, but Samaje P. Ryan, not a low-end RB2 rest of the season, just a pretty high-end handcuff. I doubt he's going to have any standalone value that you could throw into your lineup with confidence. I would probably just assume that they're trying to manage Joe Mixon's workload. Maybe he's still a little banged up. Gibson is a sell now. You can tell he doesn't want to make any cuts when he gets out of his breakthrough tackles coming at him, and he's worried about his shin too much to carry any upside. So I don't disagree with the first part of this where he looks a little hesitant. He looks like he's not quite 100%. I definitely don't disagree with that part of it, but I still think he's a guy that I'm not selling. I don't want to sell Antonio Gibson right now because I don't think you're going to get adequate value for him. If you can sell Antonio Gibson right now for James Robinson, for Leonard Fournette, for Darrell Henderson or something like that, then I'm okay selling him for that. But if you can't get anything that good for Antonio Gibson, which I imagine you won't be able to, given the fact that he is injured and he hasn't had a lot of good games recently, I would probably just hold Antonio Gibson. Again, I am an Antonio Gibson owner, so I'm not going to sell him. I'm going to probably hold out and, hope he gets better. They have a bye week in 2 weeks. Maybe he's questionable again this week, and he plays in a limited fashion again next week. The problem with Antonio Gibson is that this offense isn't very good, and this team isn't very good, and their defense is giving up a lot of points. So the scenario that we had for Antonio Gibson in mind, one, involved Ryan Fitzpatrick, who got hurt, and two, involved an elite defense. So we were thinking, at the Washington football team, they can be a 7 to 11 win team. Like they're not going to be bad. They're going to be like a pretty good team, and they're going to win games with their defense. And Antonio Gibson's going to get a lot of carries because of that. And that's not been the case. They're not winning games because their quarterback is hurt and their defense stinks. So Antonio Gibson is getting game scripted out a lot more than I expected him to coming into the season. Even if you told me that JD McKissic is going to maintain his role, I would have said, oh, okay, that's going to affect him, maybe 1, 2, 3 games of the year of the total season. But with no Ryan Fitzpatrick, with their defense being as bad as it is, it's hard to envision a scenario where Antonio Gibson gets much more than 3 to 5 great game scripts the rest of the season. They are not leading a lot of games. So that's definitely a concern for Antonio Gibson. I'd love to say it's like, well, this last game wasn't a concern because he was just game scripted out, but you could say that about him almost every game going forward on their schedule. If you look through their schedule and count the wins and losses, I'm sure there's going to be more losses than wins for the Washington football team. So definitely not a great situation for people who drafted Antonio Gibson, myself included. Thankfully, I didn't pass on like Austin Eckler or Jonathan Taylor or anything for him because they went before I picked Gibson, but it's definitely not a great situation. If you have Antonio Gibson, I'm personally holding. That's what I'm doing. I'm not selling him. I might farm out a few offers to see if I can get a James Robinson or something like that, but I highly doubt that's going to be the case for most of you guys. So I'd probably just hold if you have Gibson. Joey says, which wide receiver would you trade away for a running back? Mike Williams, Terry McLaurin, Jamar Chase. I also have Cooper Kupp. Okay, so you have a very stout wide receiver core. In your position, I might be looking to trade away Mike Williams just because of all these receivers that you have. He's the one I believe in the least in terms of can he continue to do this the rest of the season. So if you can trade away Mike Williams and you can get, I'm trying to think of a running back that you could probably get for him. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott, Najee Harris, Jonathan Taylor, somebody like that. Maybe you have to add in a small running back piece. Maybe you have like Mike Williams plus Elijah Mitchell for Jonathan Taylor or something like that. If you can pull off something like that, I'd probably be willing to do that. Bruh, I really lost by 0.4 points in the listener redraft. Yeah, I knew I was going to lose this week at the listener redraft. I had Dalvin Cook, James Robinson, Justin Herbert, and CeeDee Lamb on bye. I was like, there's no way I'm winning this week. So I kind of already chalked it up to the fact that I was going to lose. Is Waller a top 2 tight end still rest of season? I have him, and I'm really not confident in him. So, I mean, we'll hope this injury that he's dealing with is done by this, because he's on bye this week. So I'd imagine him missing this game that he missed yesterday and the bye week, he should be healthy coming out of the bye week. But Darren Waller is a guy that I'm a little concerned about just because part of the reason why Darren Waller was so valuable was because he was the centerpiece of that offense. He was all they had. He was, the engine. And their receivers are stepping up a little bit, right? Bryan Edwards caught a touchdown yesterday. Hunter Renfrow, he's going to be solid. Henry Ruggs gets more involved, and that's hurting a guy like Darren Waller a little bit. And the fact that John Gruden is no longer there, no longer the play caller, John Gruden called Darren Waller the best player he's ever been around. And I mean, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, he's been around Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and like first ballot Hall of Fame players. So the fact that he was that invested in Darren Waller makes me concerned. The fact that this was a John Gruden thing, like he loved Darren Waller that much. He featured him in his offense. So he might be the biggest loser of the John Gruden resigning. And I don't want to take away too much because we haven't really seen Darren Waller too much without John Gruden. We have a 1-game sample size. So he's probably still the focal point and the centerpiece of this offense. But I am a little concerned. And if you told me, Darren Waller or Kyle Pitts rest of the season, I'd have a hard time answering that question. Like, I think I might take Kyle Pitts in redraft leagues. Of course, in Dynasty, I would take Kyle Pitts. But in redraft leagues, I might take Kyle Pitts over Darren Waller rest of the season. And you'd be hard-pressed to tell me which tight end I wouldn't take Kyle Pitts over. Because, I mean, Travis Kelce, I'd probably still take Kelce, but Kyle Pitts might be my tight end too rest of the season. Like, he's that good, and he's performing that well. So, he was hurt this week. Yeah, so definitely, I can't take away too much from Darren Waller being hurt. I think he'll be back after the bye week and back to normal, hopefully. But again, it is a little concerning that he's not, giving you that advantage, because the one thing we said coming into the season, and me and Danny talked about it a lot, was we want these elite tight ends. We want Kelsey. We want Waller. We want Kittle. Now, Danny was a little bit more steadfast in that opinion than I was. I was a lot higher on the Hawkinson, Pitts, Andrews tier. And that's working out pretty well for me so far, because there's not a whole lot of a difference right now between Pitts, Hawkinson, Waller, and Kelsey. Like, it's surprising to say that, but they've all kind of been relatively similar in terms of their production. So definitely something to monitor. The fact that we were taking those tight ends so early, and the fact that they're not paying off with that elite positional advantage, is definitely not good if you guys did take those guys early. Trojan says, possible for DK to get 20 points tonight. I would say, yeah, it's definitely possible. DK Metcalf is a freak of nature, so he's definitely capable of doing that. I would say it's unlikely, because Geno Smith is his quarterback, and this defense for the Saints is very stingy against wide receivers and pass catchers in general. So I would say you're probably looking at like a 20% chance that happens, but it is DK Metcalf. He could definitely do that in one play. Really, he could catch a 60-yard touchdown, and you're almost there already. So definitely good to see. All that production that went to Foster would have just went to Waller. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think he was going to be in for a big game if if Waller had played. Dropped Ertz for Bass. Thoughts, Deontay? So if you need a kicker, I think he's one of the best kickers in fantasy right now. So I don't hate that move. If you already have a good tight end, I think you're fine there. Deontay Johnson or Keenan Allen rest of season. That's a tough question. I honestly think I would prefer Keenan Allen still, but it is close, because Deontay and Keenan are pretty similar type of players. They're both target hogs. They're both great in PPR leagues, but they are limited to some capacity, because with Keenan Allen, you have Mike Williams and Austin Eckler to compete for targets with. With Deontay Johnson, he's competing with Chase Claypool, and on top of the fact that Ben Roethlisberger isn't the same Ben Roethlisberger of old. So I would take Keenan Allen slightly, but it is very close. They'd both be like fringe top 12 guys for me rest of season. Yeah, Aiyuk is droppable. Depends on what's available. If nobody's available, just hold on to him. But if Bateman's available, if Gainwell's available, then go ahead and drop Aiyuk, unfortunately. Darrell Henderson and Darrell Williams let me down this week. Yeah, both of those guys I'm not really concerned about going forward. But the one thing I will say about Darrell Henderson, I actually have this written down as a takeaway. He kind of needs everything to break right. And pivoting into another takeaway, Kyle Pitts, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, these guys are examples of true talent trumps all kind of guys, right? Like, Kyle Pitts is just so talented. You can see it every play that he makes. DeAndre Swift, same thing. Anytime the guy gets the ball in his hands, he's phenomenal. Jonathan Taylor, same thing. These guys overcome their concerns, right? Because we had concerns for DeAndre Swift coming into the season. Offense, Jamal Williams, things of that nature. He's overcoming them because he's that good. Jonathan Taylor, we had Nyheim Hines, Marlon Mack, the offensive line injuries. He's overcoming them because he's that good. That's basically what's happening with him. With Darrell Henderson and Darrell Williams, they're not that good, right? They're average running backs. They're good, NFL players, but they're not, relative to other running backs in the NFL, they're not top 20 running backs in the league. They're not top 15. And I would argue the three guys that I just said are top 5 at their position, top 6, 8 at their position at very minimum. So the fact that Darrell Henderson had a down week doesn't totally shock me, because this is a guy that everything kind of needs to break right for. He needs all the volume every game. He needs the goal line touches every game. He's not going to create a whole lot on his own. And it's fine for him because he's in an elite offense and he's going to get a lot of those opportunities, but he's not a guy that's going to create a whole lot on his own. And again, makes me sad every single day that Cam Akers isn't healthy right now. Also Raiders. Yeah. Love to see it. Now I dropped A-Rob, got Pittman, no regrets. Yeah. If you got Michael Pittman on the waiver wire for Allen Robinson, give me Michael Pittman every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It's not even like Michael Pittman. Guy might be a top 25 receiver, top 20 receiver, even rest of the season. He is clearly the alpha on that team. He's commanding all the valuable targets, getting used downfield. Everything that you love to see about Michael Pittman is happening. So Michael Pittman, guy that's making me eat some crow. I wasn't very high on him. I thought he should have done more in his rookie season. And I didn't watch a whole lot of tape on him towards the end of the season. That's probably something I could have done better, because if I had gone back and watched the tape, Matt Harmon really liked him in reception perception. So I wasn't consistent with that viewpoint. I used reception perception as analysis for a lot of other guys like Aiyuk, Claypool, people like that, but I didn't use it for Michael Pittman. So that was a flaw in my analysis, and I missed on Michael Pittman. So a guy that and he was a guy that I really liked coming out of school. I kind of just, got assuaged by the fact that he didn't have a great rookie season. He kind of face planted.
And that wasn't, something that mattered really because he just got better as a player. Should I trade Edmonds and Christian Kirk for Darrell Henderson? I would rather have Darrell Henderson than those guys. Christian Kirk, guy that's going to be a boomer bust wide receiver 3. He's performing well, but I don't expect him to score a touchdown every game. So give me Darrell Henderson there as a locked and loaded top 15 running back rest of the season. I have Herbert and Stafford. Would you flip Stafford for Godwin? Yes, 100%. Easily. I would rather have Godwin twice on Sundays than Matthew Stafford, especially if you already have Justin Herbert. I may avoid drafting all Niners except Debo until Shanahan is no longer coaching the team. Yeah, Kyle Shanahan's public opinion reputation kind of went out the window in the last 6 weeks or so, because he was a guy that I was putting so much trust in, so much faith in with Trey Lance as my 101 in Dynasty Superflex. And now he's just pulling a bunch of bullshit to the point that everybody hates Kyle Shanahan now. So it's kind of funny. What to do with DJ Moore and Ridley? Nothing. Hold them. I wouldn't sell those guys. I think you're going to get, 80 cents on the dollar if you try. So I would personally, again, there's still going to be kind of buy lows for me. I don't want to sound like a broken record this buy lows week on Tuesday. I don't want to put Calvin Ridley on there again because I do think he's, it's pretty obvious that he's a buy low still, but I might have to because I think a lot of people are going to be willing to sell him low. So trade Gainwell for Michael Thomas. You have a winning record supposedly. So yeah, I would rather have Michael Thomas than Gainwell. I think that's a good trade. Looks like Patterson take over the Falcons backfield. Thoughts on that? Yeah, that's actually something I don't have written down, but that's a good point. I should talk about that. Patterson taking over the Falcons backfield is not something I saw coming, to be honest. I don't think anybody saw Cordell Patterson coming. If you did, then kudos to you, because I'm really shocked by how involved the guy's been. The one thing I will say about, him taking over the Falcons backfield is that he ran 46 snaps. Mike Davis ran 38. They ran 28 routes and 26 routes, respectively. Cordell Patterson just got the touches. So is Cordell Patterson the more valuable guy? Of course. He's much more valuable than Mike Davis. But is Mike Davis droppable? No, I don't think he is. I think he's a guy that is still a back-end RB2, high-end RB3 that you can throw into your lineup if you need to. But Cordell Patterson is clearly the running back to own in this backfield, or the weapon gadget guy to own, whatever you want to call him. And he's going to take away from Mike Davis, but he hasn't taken over the backfield necessarily. He's not like a workhorse running back. They're both still going to be involved. But Cordell Patterson is making me look stupid every day for trading him away for Nelson Aguilar, because that was a really dumb call on my part. ISO says, does Dearness Johnson take Kareem Hunt's role once Johnson comes back? Or once Kareem Hunt comes back, I'm assuming. Oh, once Chubb comes back, I'm assuming is what you're saying. So does Dearness Johnson take Kareem Hunt's role once Chubb is back? I don't think so. I think they're going to use Dearness Johnson to some capacity. I would imagine I don't think what they're imagine some people are thinking they're going to do is go Nick Chubb and Demetric Felton in Kareem Hunt's role. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to use Johnson and Chubb and kind of interchange those guys. And hopefully that means more pass catching work for a guy like Nick Chubb. But I think Dearness Johnson's earned a role, at least until Kareem Hunt comes back. But I think once Hunt's back and Chubb's back, I don't think he's going to be very involved. Do you know who is expected to cover Metcalf today? I don't, but I can look that up for you. Looking at the cornerback matchup chart, I'll go to the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle Seahawks. DK Metcalf is expected to be covered by mostly Paulson Adebo, but it said on PFF that Marshawn Lattimore was expected to shadow coverage him. So according to PFF, they're expecting shadow coverage. Marshawn Lattimore has been very good this year. So if that was your question, if that was your worry, I'd expect Marshawn Lattimore there. So PFF shadow or wide receiver cornerback chart is based on alignment, but when they expect a shadow matchup, they'll say it basically. So they say based on alignment, we expect him to see Paulson Adebo, but based on shadow coverage tendencies, we're expecting Marshawn Lattimore to shadow coverage DK Metcalf. So if that was your worry, I think it's going to happen personally. I need 26.63 from Marquez Callaway. You think I'll get it? I don't think so. I don't think Marquez Callaway is capable of putting up a stat line like that, but I mean, he's a deep threat. He could catch 2 long touchdowns, I suppose. I just don't think that's likely to happen. AJ Brown is back. Yes, sir, he is. I love to see that. I personally traded for AJ Brown in my home league. If you guys recall, I traded away Chase Claypool and Quintez Cephas, who's now on IR. So I traded away those two guys for AJ Brown at his, low point of value when he was still dealing with the hamstring injury. So I absolutely love to see peak AJ Brown in full swing, like I saw yesterday. That was definitely awesome to see from him. I'm up by 35 points. Need Jameis and DK to combine for under 30. So good news for you is that DK has a tough matchup. So there's a chance that he doesn't have a very good game, but Jameis has a great matchup. So there's a chance he has a good game. Should I trade Ridley and Elijah Moore for Jamar Chase? Man, that's tough. That's a tough call. Ridley and Chase to me are. Oh, is that Elijah Mitchell? Not Elijah Moore. Why did I think that was Elijah Moore? Ridley and Elijah Mitchell for Chase? No, I wouldn't do that. I would keep Ridley and Elijah Mitchell personally. If that was Elijah Moore, I'd probably take Chase. Shout out to all of us that got Jamar Chase in Dynasty. Yeah, shout out to me for passing on him for Travis Etienne. That was really smart in one of my Dynasty leagues. But in fairness, I said I was going to pass on Jamar Chase in that Dynasty league because it's only like a $20 buy-in. And I kind of just wanted my guys because Travis Etienne was a guy that I really liked. It's not a Dynasty league I'm really taking seriously, but I'm sure this offseason we're definitely going to run another startup Dynasty. So stay tuned for how to get into that. It'll probably be Patreon related, just for the record. So another like quick announcement for those of you guys that are in here. There's 63 of you in here right now. In the past, so the last 2 years, we've had draft guides, right? We've had a rookie draft guide and we've had a redraft draft guide and things of that nature. What we're probably going to do this offseason, because it costs a lot of money to run a website and, get the security for it and make sure that you guys, don't get hacked when you go on the website. We have to pay for all that kind of stuff and we have to pay for the domain and things of that nature. So what we're probably going to do this offseason, instead of having a draft guide, is put everything that would be in our draft guide onto Patreon. So we're basically going to make a complete transition because from our perspective, it is so much less work to put it all on Patreon than it is to run a website because we don't have it's me and Danny and Lucas helps us out, occasionally. So we don't have the manpower to run a website to the fullest capacity. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for us to have a website at this point in our, our brand and our channel's, growth. Maybe, 3 years from now, we'll have assistants and we'll have, interns and things of that nature. And we can run a website then. But as of right now, we're leaning towards moving all of our draft guide content for our rookie and dynasty draft guide, which will be our next one that we have. Obviously, we're going to move that all to Patreon. So, stay tuned for announcements on that. That's, a little into the future. We won't worry about that stuff until the off season. Yeah, like I said, uphill battle there, Jeffrey. And had Pittman dropped him after week 1. Yeah, that's not ideal. Now my dog's barking if you guys appreciate that. I'm going to sign off of here in a couple minutes just because people are starting to come home in my house right now. Ron the Goat says, with that being said, is Henderson still an RB2? I have him, Jonathan Taylor, Myles Gaskin, Kareem Hunt, and CEH. Yes, Henderson is still an RB2. Yeah, he's definitely still an RB2. I'd say he's still a top 15 running back rest of the season. My point on Henderson was really just that he's not going to be an elite running back. Because I saw some people saying, is Darrell Henderson like a top 5 running back? Because his workload is top 5 level. Like he is getting, elite running back workload, similar to what we see with Joe Mixon. But he's not a guy that is talented enough to do more with his workload than a guy like Joe Mixon, for example, or even Najee Harris, who gets a similar workload to him. So, yeah, he's still an RB2, and you're in good shape having him and Jonathan Taylor, and, of course, Kareem Hunt and CEH once they come back from injury. Thoughts on T. Higgins? What's your tier for him rest of season? With T. Higgins, I would say... Thoughts on T. Higgins. What's your tier for him rest of season? T. Higgins, to me, like I said at the beginning of the video, with the Bengals passing at a 68% neutral pass rate these last couple of weeks that we've seen, which is first in the NFL, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are going to be on the rise for me. And Tyler Boyd, obviously, Tyler Boyd, the basic way to look at the Bengals wide receiver core, in my opinion, is to look at them like the Steelers wide receiver core, because Jamar Chase and Chase Claypool play the same role in their respective wide receiver cores. Jamar Chase is more valuable than Chase Claypool, so that takes away from T. Higgins in the Deontay Johnson role, quote unquote. But I still think T. Higgins rest of season, he's got to be a top 24 guy. I think he's like 14 targets is hard to do in a single game. And he wasn't like elite on those 14 targets. He had like 7 receptions for I don't even remember how many yards he had, but T. Higgins being as involved as he was in the passing game, the Bengals ramping up their passing volume a little bit is great news for him and for Jamar Chase. So Chase is going to be like a top 10 receiver for me the rest of the season. I can't possibly put him lower than that. He is just so good. He's doing everything that you wanted to see him do coming out of LSU. So he's going to be very highly ranked for me. But T. Higgins in his own right is getting targets, and he's, been solid on those targets. So Mark says, I have Taylor, Gibson, Elijah Mitchell, and Rashad Penny, 14 team, full PPR keeper. Should I trade my 6th round pick for Damian Harris? If you are pushing for a championship, I don't mind it. But the one thing I will say is Damian Harris to me is the 4th best running back on your team. If you do that, I would prefer Taylor, Gibson, and Elijah Mitchell to Damian Harris. So rest of season. So if you're going to do that and you can start Damian Harris still every week, I'm fine with it. But in a full PPR league, he takes a hit because Gibson and Elijah Mitchell are much more involved in the passing game than him. And Damian Harris, to me, if you're pushing for a championship, I don't mind, beefing up and getting another player to give yourself some depth. I personally would probably hold pat with what you have, but if you want to make that move, I don't disagree there. So Mike Evans and Godwin wouldn't have come close to those numbers with Brown playing. Let's be real, guys. I missed AB. The one thing I will say is, yes, they probably, like Mike Evans probably doesn't score 3 touchdowns, and Chris Godwin probably doesn't have 8 receptions for 100 and something yards and a touchdown if Antonio Brown is playing, but they still would have been great. Like, again, as I talked about all week with Godwin and with Evans, these guys are going to be good more often than they're not. And when they're not good, everybody's very quick to celebrate that it's because of Antonio Brown. And when they are good, people are like, oh, that's expected. They play for Tom Brady. Like, we got to be consistent here. Like, yes, Antonio Brown was out. We expected these guys to smash, and they did. And that's better than them not doing it. And if Antonio Brown continues to miss time, they're going to be great. And even with Antonio Brown on the field, as I've talked about on numerous occasions, Evans and Godwin run the most routes. Therefore, they're more likely to get targets than Antonio Brown. But like I said, each week, probably 2 of these guys are going to hit each week because of this offense is that good. They throw the ball 40 times a game, and these receivers are all Pro Bowl caliber, all pro caliber receivers. So definitely love to see those guys produce. Once Antonio Brown's back on the field, nothing changes. You still start all 3 of these guys. Bryson says Lattimore and Adebo. Yeah, so Lattimore is expected to shadow Metcalf, and then Adebo would probably be on Lockett. Although when Lockett's in the slot, he'll be most likely on CJ Gardner-Johnson. So those are the matchups if you guys were curious. Thoughts on Rashad Penny? Good stash. I'm not excited about Rashad Penny, but he's a guy that you can stash on your bench and hope he turns into something if Alex Collins gets injured again. It looks like Chris Carson's going to be out for an extended period of time. So definitely good news for Rashad Penny. But until Russell Wilson comes back, I'm not like 100% in on this backfield. But if Rashad Penny gets any time with Russell Wilson as the starting running back, he's definitely going to be valuable. Would you try and go after Aaron Jones? He might be in my video tomorrow. So I will expand on that tomorrow. I have Mixon and think I can get him low. If you can trade Mixon for Aaron Jones, do it instantly. I would do that in a heartbeat. And even if you had to add in somebody, I would still do it. If you had to go Mixon and Henry Ruggs for Aaron Jones, I would still do that. So if you can get Mixon for Aaron Jones straight up, that is a absolute smash deal. And now that I'm saying this out loud, Aaron Jones 100% will be in my buy lows video tomorrow. He might be the guy on the cover of the video. So, because he's had some down games, people are a little concerned. I'm not at all. He's a stud. You guys know the drill around here. We buy low on studs because we know what studs can do for our fantasy teams. Candace says, should I drop Hawkinson and Calvin Ridley? No, do not drop those guys. That's definitely not what you want to be doing. I'm assuming you're new to fantasy, but don't drop those guys. What should we expect from all the Dolphins pass catchers when Will Fuller comes back? Tua looks good statistically so far. Yeah, Tua does look pretty good statistically. He's made some boneheaded mistakes, but overall, I think he's playing pretty well given the circumstances that he's in. When Will Fuller comes back, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Gesicki's workload specifically, because he has been a guy that has been targeted a lot. And same with Waddle, but Waddle's used a little differently than a guy like Will Fuller, so I'm not as worried about him. I would say that definitely downgrades those guys, and I don't really know what this timeline is on Will Fuller. It sounds like he's dealing with a hand injury. I'm not sure if he's only expected to be out a couple of weeks or if it's more serious than that. I'll have to bone up on that before I make any more comments about this pass catching situations. But as you guys know, I was high on Will Fuller coming into the season, so he's a guy that may be a good buy low candidate as well right now because he's currently on IR. He's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of people. And if you can buy him for a guy that's had a couple spike weeks here and there, like Christian Kirk or something like that, then I don't mind doing that at all. Should I have started Ertz instead of Seals Jones, I would have had a better chance if I did. I would have, in your situation, given the information that I had at the time, I would have started Seals Jones. And I think you made the right decision. I know it sucks when you have, hindsight's 2020 and you look and Ertz had the better game, but Seals Jones was running more routes than Ertz. If you simulated their 2 games 100 times, Seals Jones would have outperformed him more often than Ertz outperformed him, because Ertz was not on the field as much as Seals Jones was. So I would have went with Seals Jones regardless. Okay, I'll answer these last couple that are on the screen here, and then I will head out of here. Thoughts on trading Madison, Ertz, and Deontay for Ridley? A little too much to give up, because Deontay and Ridley to me are in the same tier. Have you seen any updates on McCaffrey's Week 9 return? I have not as of right now, but Week 9 is about the timeline that we heard for him. So as of right now, that's kind of what I'm thinking for Christian McCaffrey. I got Kupp, Henry, Ridley, Deontay Johnson, and Hurts. Pick 3 to pick. I don't know. I'm not really sure what you're asking there, Jeffrey. Great video as always, Bush. Keep up the great work. If you're here and haven't subscribed, smash the like button and subscribe. It's totally worth it. Yeah, listen to Kilgi. I don't have it pulled up how many people are liking the video, but if you haven't already done so, please go ahead and do that. It is totally free and it helps us out tremendously. So, and subscribe if you're new as well. We're trying to we have set a definitive timeline. We want to get to 10,000 subscribers by New Year's Day. So on average, what we have to do to get to that is about 250 per week. So if you guys haven't subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button. Nick says, Keenan Allen against the Patriots to start. Yep, 100%. It actually sounds like Jonathan Jones is going to be out for the year too. So that's, that makes the Patriots matchup a little less daunting going forward for wide receivers. Yeah, I know. Wish me luck. Yep. Would you trade Kamara for Jerry Jeudy and Saquon Barkley, assuming Barkley plays week 8? That's close. I probably would, but it's risky. So if you can handle the risk, I think that's worth it if it works out and the way I think it can work out. But if you're, if you don't want to go for the risky play, then I think you can just hold pat with Kamara because he's going to be great. Sup Bush and everyone. What's up, Mac? Will Fuller will be back for a week and get injured 100%. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely possible. You can expect Fuller to get hurt, of course. Bet, thank you. Going to flip Mixon for Aaron Jones ASAP, even though Mixon might go crazy against the Jets. Again, I don't, that's almost a selling point. If you want to tell the person that has Aaron Jones, oh, dude, Mixon's about to have a big week, maybe you could squeeze an extra piece out of him on top of Aaron Jones. Because, yeah, like I said, I don't usually pay attention a whole lot to schedule when I'm trading, because typically when I'm trading for players, they're studs and they perform regardless of schedule. So, and Aaron Jones is no exception to that rule. So that's usually what I'm looking to do. Is Pitts someone to keep rest of the season or sell high right now? I'm not selling high on Pitts. I have Pitts in my home league. I bought low on him, thankfully. In I think right before the London game, I traded who did I trade for Pitts? I don't even remember off the top of my head. But it was a deal that you guys all liked on Twitter. I remember that for sure. But if you got Pitts low or you drafted Pitts and now he's performing, don't sell him. Just keep him. He's going to be phenomenal, and he's going to be one of the best tight ends in fantasy the rest of the season. Because like I said on numerous occasions, this guy is not a tight end. He runs receiver routes. He's in the slot all the time. He's out wide all the time. And he's beating corners one-on-one because he's a 6'6", 250-pound human being that runs 4.4. He's not fair. Like, that's what Kyle Pitts is. Hell yeah, bro. You got it. Yeah, appreciate that. To keep Dynasty. Okay, so I'll go back to your question real quick. It was right here. Okay, so I got Kupp, Henry, Ridley, Deontay Johnson, and Hurts. Pick 3 to keep. Okay, so if this is a keeper league, I'm assuming. If that's Derrick Henry, he's definitely one of them. Cooper Kupp, definitely one of them as well. Toss up between Calvin Ridley and Deontay Johnson. In Dynasty, in kind of like a keeper format, I would go with Deontay Johnson. He's a bit younger. He does have, I would say, more upside to get a higher ceiling in the future because he's playing with a terrible quarterback right now. So I think it's only going to get better from here for Deontay Johnson. So I would go with him personally, but it's close between him and Ridley. Was just offered Brandon Cooks and Zach Moss for Dearness Johnson, Khalil Herbert, and Corey Davis, full PPR. He has Hunt, but I have Chubb. Okay. So you have Chubb. I'm definitely okay getting rid of Dearness Johnson, especially if you have Chubb. Khalil Herbert, he's going to be valuable for the next week or two until David Montgomery comes back. But after that, I'd imagine he's not going to be very involved. And then Corey Davis, full PPR. So Brandon Cooks, to me, is the best asset in this deal. His target share, his air yard share is what you want to see. If you need an upgrade at wide receiver, I like this move. And Zach Moss, to me, Khalil Herbert, and Zach Moss are about similar to me in value right now. But Zach Moss going forward is going to have higher value because Dave Montgomery is going to come back at some point. So I'll take the Brandon Cook side there, but it's not, I'm not confident in either side. I think it's pretty fair regardless. What can we expect from Jerry Jeudy rest of the season and the rest of the Broncos pass catchers once he comes back? I'm expecting Jerry Jeudy to come back and be the best receiver on that team. And I know Courtland Sutton's been good, but Jerry Jeudy is better, in my opinion. So I expect Jerry Jeudy to come in and kind of similarly to a guy like Deontay Johnson, just command a lot of targets, be involved, and be Teddy Bridgewater's go-to guy. So that's what I'm expecting out of Jerry Jeudy. Again, maybe it takes him a week or two to get fully acclimated back to the full routes and full snap share that we expected from Jerry Jeudy coming into the season. But there's a reason I like Jerry Jeudy a lot better than Courtland Sutton coming into the year. It's because Teddy Bridgewater and this offense is meant to design itself through a possession receiver like Jerry Jeudy. Would you trade Waller away if you have Goddard or vice versa in a package deal with Damian Harris to upgrade at running back? No, I wouldn't. I would hold Darren Waller there. Steven. Do you think Metcalf will score more than 10 points against the Saints defense in full PPR? In full PPR, it's going to be pretty hard for him to score less than that. It's possible because of the Lattimore matchup, but I would say he's probably like an 85% chance that he scores more than 10 points in full PPR. Yep, that's what I was thinking. Thanks, bro. No worries. All right. So we went an hour. I didn't expect to go that long. I wanted to only go for like 30, 40 minutes, but who cares? You guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Again, like the stream if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Stay tuned for pre-Monday Night Football. We're still going to go live before Monday night for about half an hour, 45 minutes. So stay tuned for that. Peace out, guys. Enjoy Monday.